Drake Maye, Bo Nix, and Daniel Jones are bound to bounce back after a disappointing Week 9 performance. We reveal our full quarterback and tight end fantasy rankings for Week 10 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today, we're getting into our full quarterback and tight end rankings for Week 10, and then we'll be getting into our running backs rankings in our next episode. There are a few teams on bye this week, actually 4 teams, but 3 notable quarterbacks for fantasy will be on bye. That's Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, and Joe Flacco. So if you've been relying on those guys, you're going to have to find someone else. Let's start at the top of our rankings. We both have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at 1 and 2. No shocker there. You have Jalen Hurts at 3. I am at 4. And I have Drake Maye actually as my quarterback 3 this week after a down-ish week last week against the Falcons. He only scored 16 fantasy points, but I think he comes back this week against the Buccaneers and puts up a big performance.
Yeah, and the good thing about this game, it could be very high scoring. I call it the Tom Brady Bowl. These are his last 2 teams. You'll be watching this with great interest, but good on these 2 teams for rebounding from having the GOAT and have some pretty good quarterbacks. So it's just fun to say Drake Maye versus Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of fun with this quarterback matchup also on the field here. It's going to be exciting. I think this is one of the higher scoring games of the week. Only if you didn't have Rams, 49ers, and Eagles, Packers, this game would be getting a little bit more attention this week, but it should be a lot of fun. Again, a lot of weapons on the field. You figure both teams are going to have to put the ball up in the air. The Patriots are good against the run. The Bucs are pretty solid against the run. So it's going to be maybe a aggressive downfield passing fest. That's been the nature of both quarterbacks. And when we see that, we love it for fantasy. That means a lot of points, a lot of air yards, a lot of things that can happen when these guys are dropping back and passing. So I'm excited for both of them. I actually have a Baker Mayfield a little ahead at 4. So I think when I look at these matchups, I look at where the shootout's going to come. You see there's definitely a possibility in this one.
Yeah, you're not far behind with Drake Maye. You have him right there at 5, so we both really like him. But you are a little bit higher, like you said, on Baker Mayfield this week than I am. You have him at 4. I have him at 8. The thing with Baker, it's like this offense is really banged up across the entire offense, right? Hopefully Emeka Egbuka after the bye, like he's been playing through the hamstring injury, but there's something off between Mayfield and Egbuka all of a sudden. But 2 straight, I mean, the week 8 game before their bye was terrible, only 4 fantasy points. But even week 7, it was only 11 fantasy points. So you're expecting him to bounce back against the Patriots' pretty good defense this week.
Yeah, I just think, again, points, Mayfield is going to be forced to throw. It may not always be pretty, but he's got enough weapons, right? It's not, again, the A-listers that we're used to. We'll see about Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, if he gets some reinforcements this week overall in the offense. But again, Egbuka, I think during the bye, they would also fixed a few things here to get Mayfield back on track. He was a little bit off before the bye. We know in the Saints game, he put up an absolute clunker in fantasy. So I think he'll rebound again. He's going to have to if the Bucs are going to have any chance to win this game against the Patriots. They got to be pretty relentless throwing the ball.
Yeah, and they do have a really good run defense, the Patriots. Michael Penix Jr. did put up 23 fantasy points against them last week. And they faced a lot of bad quarterbacks this year as well. To say like maybe their defense is a little bit overrated because the 3 weeks prior to facing the Falcons, it was Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, Spencer Rattler. They're facing other quarterbacks they faced this year are Andy Dalton and Tua and Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers. So it's like they have not been facing these crazy fantasy quarterbacks at all this year. So I think Baker will be just fine. Now, moving on in our rankings, I have Justin Herbert at 5. You have him at 8. He's been great. The Steelers were a shutdown defense last week, but I think they're just trying to prove a point. I'm still fine with going with Herbert. And then Jaxson Dart, you have at 6. I have at 7. He's been on fire. He gets the Bears. You play him. But two guys I want to talk about, Bo Nix and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones really, really struggled last week. Bo Nix had a tough opponent against the Texans. He did okay overall, but I have Bo Nix all the way at number 6 this week at home against the Raiders, and you have him at 9. And then we both have Daniel Jones in our top 10. I have him at 9. You have him at 10 this week against the Falcons.
Yeah, the Bo Nix splits, I was diving into them a little bit ahead of the Thursday night game against the Raiders. He's ridiculously good at home. Look, the numbers are not all that great in terms of the efficiency or the yards per attempt and all that, but the touchdowns are way off the charts in his favor at home. And we've seen that here the past 3 weeks, right? The comeback against the Giants, the shootout with the Cowboys. Well, not really. It was a one-sided affair against the Cowboys, but he was throwing the ball out in that game. So you look at that, both home games, both big games from Bo Nix. Go on the road, face the Texans defense, just happens to be a tough defense away from Denver. Not a great fantasy day, right? It was pretty low scoring. We know that all the way through the end. So now he comes back, gets the Raiders defense. Again, I think Nix is always going to get his points at home because, again, this team is not a dominant rushing team. It's solid, right, when you look at J.K. Dobbins, but they like to throw a lot in the red zone. They have a variety of weapons. Troy Franklin has come on, is a former Oregon Ducks teammate, so you've seen that. I think he's comfortable with Franklin, the tight ends. Cortland Sutton's a given each week, and all that seems to click a little bit better at home for Bo Nix. Again, Bo Nix, reality quarterback, still leaves a lot to be desired. But in terms of just figuring out how to put up fantasy points with his arm and legs, he can do that, but only at home.
And are we certain that Daniel Jones will bounce back? Because, this game is not, it's technically a home game, but it's in Berlin, right? So it's not in Indy. And Daniel Jones has been much better in his dome at home than on the road. So maybe it's another down week from him. The Falcons do have a pretty good pass defense. They held Drake Maye to one of his lower outputs of the season. I just think this Colts offense is going to bounce back and not look nearly as bad as they did last week.
Yeah, they're not going to be nearly as bad. They're going to be pumped up. They have Sauce Gardner now on the other side. The Colts know what kind of season they could have. They're still the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Falcons, look, you don't know what you're going to get from them week in and week out. They show up defensively in one game, then they disappear. This is a long road trip for them. I think the Colts will travel a little bit better in this one. So, yeah, I think he'll bounce back. I don't expect a spectacular game. I think Jonathan Taylor will also get back on track, but it seems like this team, when Taylor goes, I think it helps Jones go. Taylor was shut down last week. So if Taylor can get going, that's going to set up the play action, get everything open downfield to Tyler Warren and Michael Pittman and the rest of the receivers. I don't love the downfield receivers in this game too much against the Falcons coverage, but I think Pittman and Warren are the keys to getting him those points, as they typically are, right? If Pittman and Warren both have a good game together, then Daniel Jones is benefiting from that. So I think it ties in directly with them. I think they do the job this week.
Now, you have Stafford at quarterback 7. I have him a little bit lower at 12. I still think he's a fine play. I mean, he has scored at least 25 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 weeks, including one of those games against the 49ers with 26 fantasy points. He does typically struggle playing at the 49ers, but yeah, the 49ers defense is really banged up. So I'm fine with playing him. I just don't have him that high because I like a lot of quarterbacks this week, but I'm fine with your ranking at quarterback 7 for him.
Yeah, I mean, he now leads the NFL in touchdown passes. Well, that happens when you have back-to-back games of 4 touchdown passes, which he had one before the bye against the Jaguars, and then he just destroyed the Saints. I mean, we knew that was coming. But Puka Nacua, let's check on him. I think he'll be able to go in this game. Obviously, if he's not in there, you shifted a little bit where one source of points, but he's tended to throw to Kyren Williams, Devontae Adams, plenty in the red zone. Now he's getting Tyler Higbee involved as well. So there's path to touchdowns. I don't know if you can expect a huge yardage total. Last time Kyren Williams had a big game, except for that fumble that cost him the game, but otherwise he produced against the 49ers. So again, the 49ers defense has enough holes it's definitely a lot weaker than it was the first time the Rams saw it. So I think there's enough there. But for Stafford, it's going to come down to the touchdown passes. If he has 3+, you're sitting pretty, and 2, you better hope for the yardage that comes with it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll get to the rest of our quarterback rankings and into our tight end rankings right after we hear from our sponsors.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. Whether you're grabbing food at your local restaurant or heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards there in your neighborhood. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com, joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so that they know we sent you. All right, Michelle, it's time to continue the show. We've kind of looked at our top 12-ish, but there are some differences of guys that appear in top 12 that are in mine, but not in yours, and vice versa. One guy that's in both top 12s, Caleb Williams. Now, he came alive last week. He took a lot of Colston Loveland. Somehow he did it with Rome Odunze, putting up a 0, and then Rome Odunze's dad complaining about it. But we told you the tight end was money in the bank against the Bengals, and he just went bonkers. Loveland is the rookie of the week for that performance, and Williams was awesome last week because they could do whatever they wanted. Now, you look at this game. They're at home against the Giants. The Giants are not a scary defense at all. So do you like Caleb continuing this week? I think the only concern I have, Michelle, is if they get ahead, how much do they run the ball here, especially if DeAndre Swift comes back? But you have him at 10, I have him at 12.
The thing is, with how bad the Bears defense has been, though, too, like the Giants will be able to put up points against this Bears defense to make them keep going. That's what we need, right? The Bengals were able to keep putting up points to make Caleb Williams keep throwing. So we're going to need that. But yeah, they should be able to run a lot. We'll get into the running backs and what we think about this backfield if DeAndre Swift returns on our next show. But the Giants have allowed the 4th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. I do think Caleb Williams is a solid play this week. I have him at quarterback 10. You have him at 12. It's always going to be risky with him. It can get really ugly really fast, but I think he's a safe play this week. Now at number 11, we pretty much swap here. So I have Sam Darnold at 11. You have him at 13. Your 11 is Jared Goff. I have him at 14. I do like both of these guys this week. Sam Darnold has just been really, really solid. I mean, 20 or more points in 3 of the last 4 weeks, 27 points in 2 of those 4 games. And like the Cardinals defense doesn't scare me necessarily. I know they just held up the Cowboys, but I do think Sam Darnold, especially now getting Rashid Shaheed in this offense too, like that's a huge addition. And he's just been balling out.
Yeah, the Cardinals need to show up a little bit this week. They've named Jacoby Brissett their starter again. Murray's not going to play, so come on, Cardinals, be somewhat competitive. But it didn't matter. The Commanders weren't competitive, and Sam Darnold just ripped them to shreds in the first half. So that's why I kind of like Jared Goff this week, because he gets that Commanders matchup. I'm not starting to get worried about this home away thing as much with Jared Goff. Number one is the Commanders, again, give up a lot of big plays. And if you heard John Morton, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, they said before last week's game, we need to get Jameson Williams involved in the downfield passing game. And he got involved. He had one of his better fantasy games in weeks against the Vikings. So now you get this team that was just giving a big play after big play to the Seahawks. I know they'll try to clean up some of the stuff, but it's going to be hard, right? You got to worry about Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam LaPorta. It's just going to be hard to defend anything for this Commanders defense. They seem a little bit old, out of place. I don't think they know what they're doing. It's kind of like night and day from last year. So that's why I like Jared Goff. I do like Darnold as well, but I think in terms of the volume, like it could be somewhat equal, right? Because it's Marcus Mariota on the other side. So it's not like that team is going to light it up, but two backup quarterbacks on the other side. So let's hope they both get their touchdowns as pocket passers this week.
Yeah, I already decided as you were talking, I'm going to move Goff up to 13 and move Rodgers down one because I did have Rodgers one spot ahead of him, but I would much prefer actually to start Goff against the Commanders instead of Rodgers. So I'm going to change that, but I still do want to keep Williams and Sam Darnold and Matthew Stafford over Goff just slightly this week. But yeah, you're right. It is a great matchup. Now, with Aaron Rodgers, I have him at 13. You have him at 15. If you had to choose, so these guys are all pretty much in the same ranking for me. Very, very close here, back to back to back. And it's Aaron Rodgers against the Chargers, who have allowed very few fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this year. JJ McCarthy against the Ravens, and their defense has been so much better over the last few games. Or Justin Fields against the Browns, but it is at home for the Jets, and the Browns are worse on defense on the road. And that's if Fields ends up starting. Which of these three guys would you like to go with?
Yeah, this is getting into the borderline. I really would like to avoid these guys if I can, but I'm definitely going to be probably playing them in Superflex if got them. Actually, I won't be playing McCarthy because I have Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts. So I won't be playing him in Superflex. But when you look at it, these are your options. I like McCarthy 14, Rodgers 15, and Fields 17. I just don't want to throw myself into that danger against the Browns. I know they're not great on the road, but they're also playing an inept, dysfunctional offense on the road, which is not going to do the Jets any favors in this one. So I really like to avoid that. Aaron Rodgers in the air yards last week, it wasn't pretty, and I don't know. It's deteriorating slowly for him. It's good that they're playing better defense because I don't think they would have won that game without all those turnovers last week. And then McCarthy, look, there's just something. He's got the weapons, right? I mean, that's a nice thing. He's playing at home. We said this is why we liked him before the season. The system is there. He can run. So I think at least with McCarthy, you have a shot to compile in the Jaxson Dart mold where these other two could totally fall flat.
And then, we have to figure out what to do with this 49ers quarterback situation. I mean, now finally Kyle Shanahan has admitted it's turf toe for Purdy. They're so weird with injuries. Who knows if he's going to come back? But Purdy or Mac Jones, are they playable against the Rams? And would you prefer either one of those guys over that group of Rodgers, McCarthy, or Fields? The last game against the Rams, Mac Jones started, put up 22 fantasy points against them. But, it's been since then, it's been 11 points, 5 points, 18 points, 15 points. So it hasn't been much fantasy points coming Mac Jones' way.
Yeah, this is the literal definition of the fantasy cliche, wide range of outcomes, because we don't even know what quarterback's starting. We don't know what style of quarterback play you're going to get. We never know what receivers are actually going to be out there healthy. We're pretty sure Ricky Purcell won't play again, but Juwan Jennings should return. We just have had so many questions. This time George Kittle is back, so how does that factor in? He usually does well against the Rams, so I think it's just hard, right? I think I'll just say this. With either quarterback, I think it's a limited ceiling, right? You have Christian McCaffrey who's doing a lot of the work, heavy lifting. I know his catch and passes really helps the quarterback, but they're a McCaffrey riding team at this point, right? And some of the plays come off that. So it's very hard. You're going to need the touchdowns to come through because you're going to get nothing in the running game from either quarterback. So it's tough. I want to believe that they can get it done, but Purdy coming right back off the injury against the Rams defense is a little nerve-wracking. And then Mac Jones having played well once, will that film kind of hurt him the second time? So I'm just not sure what to expect from either quarterback.
Yeah, I would rather go with Rodgers instead of Purdy or Mac Jones, but I would rather go with either one over JJ McCarthy against those Ravens. The Ravens defense has just fixed themselves. And then with Fields, you're either going to get 30 points or 3 points. There's no in between. So wish you the best if you go with him. Let's transition to our tight end rankings. We'll take a quick break and finish up today's episode of that. We are halfway through the NFL season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You just have to love how FanDuel offers you numerous ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, and even put in wagers for the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, let's hop into our tight end rankings for Week 10. Two notable fantasy tight ends on bye this week, and that's Travis Kelce and Jake Ferguson. So big guys that you have to replace here if you roster them. But at the top of our rankings, we have the same top two guys, Trey McBride against the Seahawks at number 1 with Brock Bowers, even in a tough matchup against the Broncos at number 2. The 2 games that he played healthy, he's been dominant, and he just scored 3 touchdowns this last week. Now, at number 3, I'm sticking with Tyler Warren. I know it was a disappointment against the Steelers. He didn't do what we wanted, but I'm still going to stick with him at 3. You have him at 6. But the guy we need to talk about is Oronde Gadsden, the rookie. He keeps doing it. I know last week wasn't like a huge fantasy week, but still had 5 receptions for 68 yards. And now he gets the Steelers, who did shut down Tyler Warren. But I don't think, I just don't think that's the Steelers' new defense. I think they were just extra motivated in that game.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Oronde Gadsden, like I had been looking at the mock drafts. Last year was Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland trying to give them to the Chargers. Now I'm like, oh, I need to give a tight end to the Chargers, but I'm not doing that anymore. Oronde Gadsden, 2, looks like the real deal here, and he's a big part of their offense. I know it's been a bit frustrating, right? Because it adds one more mouth that's getting fed here. It's gone from rags to riches. It was basically Ladd McConkey last year. They had Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, and Gadsden doing their thing, which makes it nice to play Justin Herbert, but can also make it frustrating in certain matchups. But Gadsden, I think, will come through. And the Steelers are bad against the tight end. I think the Colts just weren't in the flow of their offense. I mean, when you turn them over the ball 6 times, you're not going to get going and doing what you want to do offensively. So I think the Chargers, that won't happen, right? This game is in LA. It's in Sunday night. The Chargers have had a good history, whether it's Phillip Rivers or another quarterback playing against the Steelers in this type of game. So I think Gadsden is a fine play this week, especially with those 2 guys on bye. I think he's a must start in most formats. I'm at number 7, you have him at number 4, but either way, a must play if you're in the top 8.
Yeah, I have him 4. I really, really like him this week. He's just ahead of Sam LaPorta, who had a fantastic week this last week. It's been an up and down season for him. Sometimes, he's not always necessary, right? Sometimes the Lions could just lean on the running backs, or sometimes they just lean on Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams. They have so many options. So it's always like you don't know what you're going to get from this offense and who they're going to target the most. But Sam LaPorta, nice matchup against the Commanders. He's a must start every week. You have him at 4, I have him at 5.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that they can just give everybody the love. It's hard to do that. And I know in fantasy, we want to get a running back scoring. We want all the things happening, right? I mean, Sam LaPorta usually could have fallen at the 1, and Jahmyr Gibbs gets that touchdown instead. So we want the Lions to give us everything all at once. They don't always, but the Commanders are just so giving right now that you got to throw everyone out there. They still cannot cover the tight end all that well, even though it was the wide receivers who went off. It was the middle of the field that was really wide open. So Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam LaPorta should eat them alive, as well as small passes to Jahmyr Gibbs, right? It should be more of those guys' games versus a Jameson Williams game. I still think I like Williams. You want to play all these guys, hope for the best. Just know that somebody's going to let you down in these Chargers and Lions offenses. But I don't see LaPorta doing that. I think, again, they've got him involved. And typically when they get him involved and they can run the ball effectively, then he's going to have a big game.
And he's finally started to score touchdowns again. 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, at least 14 fantasy points and half PPR in 3 of the last 4 games. So he has been coming alive. So really like him this week. Now, what are we doing with George Kittle? I kept him here at 6, at tight end 6. You kept him at tight end 5. George Kittle's averaging just 25 receiving yards per game this season. Since coming back from injury, he has 0 yards in the first game back, then 43, and then just 32. Not getting a ton of targets. And he does have 2 touchdowns in 4 games played. But, with Mac Jones, the connection's just not there like it is with Brock Purdy. Like, if Brock Purdy comes back, I'm going to love George Kittle. But what are we doing with Kittle until he's back? It's just hard to trust him right now.
Yeah, let's watch the Purdy development and practice. Turf toe easily could go either way. It's a very painful injury, so it's really about pain tolerance to be out there right now for Purdy. Purdy definitely needs Kittle, and Kittle needs Purdy. They really need each other because they're just a special connection, right? There's just something inherently easy about the way they pitch and catch, right, in this offense. So yeah, Mac Jones, I don't know what it is. Like, he should be throwing a lot to George Kittle. He came back. He tried effectiveness. Let's just hope maybe the history against the Rams, the nature of this being a big game, we'll get, hey, this got to be a Kittle game here to win this game. So I have some high hopes for him this week that he gets going because they're going to need to, I think, if they want to beat the Rams.
Now, going deeper into our rankings here, I have Goddard at 7. You have him at 9. You have Mark Andrews just ahead of Goddard at number 8. So with both of these guys, Goddard and Andrews, they're so touchdown dependent, right? They're not getting very many yards at all. I have Andrews at 14, so I'm much lower than him. I just feel like Goddard against his Packers defense, you can beat the Packers with a tight end. I think he has more of a chance to come down with a touchdown or two in this matchup than Andrews does. And with Andrews, his receiving yards are 22, 24, 34, 22 the last 4 games. And really, unless he gets multiple touchdowns in the game, he's not helping you.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I just think Andrews is kind of feeling it again with Lamar Jackson back in the lineup. They're kind of getting to what they do best here in terms of what we've seen out of Lamar Jackson. Tight end touchdowns, a few random wide receiver scores here. Derrick Henry kind of setting things up. So I think you'll see the Vikings defense be somewhat giving there. They're actually okay at corner. So I think Andrews is going to have a bigger role in this one, but he can always score multiple touchdowns. Dallas Goedert had not really scored as much. This year has been his career scoring year. So I don't know if he can keep that up against the Packers, but another reason you bump these guys up, Andrews and Goddard, on top of having no Kelce, no Ferguson, there's no more Tucker Kraft. So you're going to have to extend and play some guys here that you may not want to, but again, let's hope for the best on here. I think you're right. Goddard has a better chance to have the bigger game, but Andrews could have a nice floor against the Vikings.
Now I have this group of 4 tight ends that I'm very, very similar on all of them, and it's hard to put them in an exact order. But I have Colston Loveland at tight end 9, and a big of that will be, is Cole Kmet out or not with the concussion protocol? And then Dalton Schultz at 10, Kyle Pitts at 11, and Harold Fannin Jr. at 12. You're similar on me with Pitts, Fannin, and Loveland. You have them ranked 10 through 12 for you as well. Dalton Schultz, you have a bit lower, but with Schultz, the Jaguars are a nice matchup for tight ends. We just saw Brock Bowers destroy them. Schultz is getting he's very, very involved in this Texans offense. And with Davis Mills, he could be looking Dalton Schultz way a lot as well. So in 2 of the last 3 games, Schultz has seen at least 8 targets, at least 77 receiving yards. He just needs to find a touchdown once in a while. With Kyle Pitts, he gets a nice matchup against the Colts. And then with Fannin Jr., he's just been heavily involved as well. And we know what Colston Loveland did last week. So I actually like all these guys.
Yeah, I do like Pitts and Fannin a little bit more. I mean, look at the Colts matchup. The Colts are pretty giving against a tight end now, especially with Sauce Gardner back there. I think you'll see Michael Penix more inclined to go away from Drake London maybe in that matchup or whoever else and go more to his tight end. So I think it's only going to funnel things more to the tight end with the Falcons and Pitts this week. Fannin, I think he's just an integral part of their offense going forward. Here with Dylan Gabriel, if they ever make a quarterback change, I think he'll also be there for Shedeur Sanders. So I think Fannin, they got to unlock him more. I mean, he's a special guy. Kind of reminds me of Dalton Kincaid, that hybrid role. So I think he continues. Loveland, the matchup is good enough if you need him against the Giants. I just think you're probably going to get the squeaky wheel of Rome Odunze greased a little bit more. And Dalton Schultz, look, you can play him if you want. I can't do it. Like, it's just so limited here. I don't expect a lot of scoring also in this Jaguars-Texans game. So I think I'd rather go to some of the games where there's potential for scoring. So, I mean, in that case, I'd say Pitts and Loveland you lean towards, and then Fannin right in between, then Schultz off my board this week.
All right, that's fair. I do think Schultz is playable, but those other three guys definitely do offer much more upside, while Schultz doesn't offer that same upside and has the same floor. So I get you there with Schultz. He's just been such an important part of this offense as of late. But that will be it for today's episode. Tomorrow we'll get to our running back rankings. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.